Okay, we're back to being a learner. We're going to talk a little bit about stages of learning and lifelong learning and being an effective learner. We went through a lot of the practical stuff, being a good student, last time. Now we're going to be talking more about some theoretical background and your lifelong journey. So the little graphic here illustrates ways we get information today, and it is so much better than the old days. When I was growing up, we went to an encyclopedia, and a lot of times it didn't have the information you wanted. Today, we can jump on the internet. I remember seeing a TV show where a pilot ejected at Mach 3, and I thought to myself, could they even survive that? And I looked it up on the internet instantly. So we have tools today we didn't have before. We can get information when we want to, when we have the question that pops into our mind. Okay, the dependent learner, that's the teach me mode. That's the old mode. We want you guys to be more independent. You Google it yourself. I'm trying to teach you to go research on your own, go to the library, teaching you to fish rather than giving you a fish. And that's where this levels of intellectual maturity come in. There are 4 phases, by the way, and they're broken down into 9 pieces. Mommy and daddy have the right answers. Authorities have, oops, I didn't want to do that. Authorities have all the right answers. The other people are fraud. Well, eventually you get down to multiplicity, that maybe mom and dad aren't always right. And then you get to the point, no one's wrong. Everyone's right. Everyone's equal. All opinions are equal. Then you get along a little more and you say, well, you know, some opinions they have data and evidence and facts supporting them. Not all opinions are equal. But which one's right? You still don't know. You don't know if you're right or wrong. You have uncertainty still. Nonetheless, you take your best shot and you commit. Oops, wrong way. Okay, this just shows it in a diagram. The dualism, the multiplicity, relativism, some opinions are better than others, and finally commitment. This, in words, says what that previous graph says. This is also a graph that when things are black and white, yes, it's yes or no. I can commit to that faith. Now, when you get further along on the scale, you're still committed to a course of action, but you don't believe in it as a black and white thinking, my way or the highway. You've evaluated the evidence and you've researched the information, and so you can make a commitment based on that information, knowledge, evidence, experiments. In the case of engineering, you try to figure out, or you might do an experiment or two. What's right, what's wrong? Okay, dualism, mom or dad or the instructor is right or wrong. Multiplicity, everything is equally right. Relativism, some are better than others. And then commitment. You commit to a position based on your values. Dualism to multiplicity. There's many opinions. An example might be viewing a movie. We all have different tastes on movies. We all have different ideas of what's good and what's bad. Observer, mature learner. Search for personal answers. Avoid running to authority. That's my example of the internet search. Gee, I saw something on television I didn't think was right. I looked it up immediately. Didn't wait. Cultural ambiguity. So this illustrates 2 different cultures, Western, say, and Middle Eastern. Here's this one lady saying, "Everything's covered but her eyes. What a cruel, male-dominated culture." And she's thinking, "Nothing covered but her eyes. Nothing covered but her eyes. What a cruel, male-dominated culture." Who's right? Who's wrong? As engineers, we need to think about this, because when you design a car, women have long fingernails, high heels. They might be from a different culture, so they have different dress that might be uncomfortable in whatever car you design. Think of your customer. That's human-centered engineering, by the way. There's no right or wrong answer. Shopping for the best car. And of course, car makers have figured this out. They sell different cars for different folks. Multiplicity says there's no truth. Moving to relativism, though, you start supporting your ideas with facts and evidence and reason. All of those team decision-making things that we talked about at the beginning of the semester, that was to try to sort through the evidence, facts, and opinions. Okay. Commitment, courage, belief in oneself, maturity. There is a risk of failure. There is a lot of times time is short. No solution is possible. Or you think that. That's the way you feel when it's not really true. If you get into that quagmire of thinking, you can get stuck. And it's hard to get unstuck. That's where courage, belief in yourself comes in. So you observe, you agree, you pledge, you're loyal, you're responsible. You negotiate. This might be important. Sometimes instead of being edicted, well, you've got to get it done in 1 week. And you have to stand up and say, can't be done in less than 2. It's the way it is. Boss might not like it, but that is, you got to sometimes stand up to the boss, pull out your Gantt chart and say, I had to do that in one project. I pulled out my Gantt chart and said, okay, you identify where we can shorten this. And he couldn't. The boss couldn't. He just wanted it done faster. And I stuck to my guns on that, but I also had the facts and evidence behind me. So, discussion board. This is on our online COVID-19 era right now. I want you to post this on the discussion board. List 3 recent decisions. Why did you make that decision? In your notebooks, I keep asking you to write down why you made the decision you made in your notebook. What motivated you? What was the values underlying the decision? The decision-making tools that you used, a decision matrix and so forth. What were the common values? And your group. I keep pushing you to do that in your notebooks. With COVID-19, some of you are going to have to switch gears on your projects, which means that what would be the reason for the decision? Why did you choose to switch gears? Why did you choose to alter your project the way you chose it? You got to explain yourself. If you don't practice doing this, your boss is going to make you do it one day in industry. It happens. I remember making a detector for a laser-guided bomb, and it had to heat up really fast. And so I looked at heat conduction and modeled it and figured out what would do a design that would do the job. And then the boss came back and said, well, tell me about convection and radiation. I couldn't tell him about that. I didn't think they were very important. That was my gut instinct, my seat of the pants instinct. Well, I could do a good calculation on radiation, and it wasn't important, it turned out. But convection is something we just had to take our best guess at. We didn't know for sure. It turns out some experiments show for double pane windows that when the spacing is thin, that's when conduction dominates. Conduction through the glass, conduction through the medium, the air or the argon or whatever you have between your panes of glass. So you make the double pane windows thicker. You have this air gap. More air means more insulation. Okay? But at a certain point, you have convection. That's moving air. Still air. Still air. AIR. Still air insulates. Moving air doesn't. So at about a half an inch, about 12 millimeters, you get any higher than that, and conduction dominates. So there's kind of a sweet spot between conduction and convection. Convection is moving air. So I had to go through that in industry. You do that on the discussion board, and this is a good time to stop the video, so I'm going to stop it here and be sure and post on the discussion board and then come back because there's a little bit more to wrap up.